Do you love breakdowns? Do you need stats? Do you crave insight? Download the AllStar app. UFC, Bellator, PFL 1 Championship, and more. Ad-free, fully customizable. Download the best app in the business. Link in descriptions. Leon Edwards, he gets the unanimous decision over Kamaru Usman. A lot of people are saying Usman's on the decline. His injuries are catching up to him. He just doesn't look the same. He's shell-shocked from the head kick knockout. Leon Edwards, he's in his prime. It's just like perfect timing for him. Lucrative, what do you see? What did you see in this fight? Like, are you leaning towards more of Leon being just overall better fighter and the game planning is better for him, or do you see a decline in Kamaru Usman?
I think there's undoubtedly a decline. I have to say that off the bat. I don't want to take anything from Leon Edwards, but exactly like you said, we have to call it as we see it. I think you could definitely see a decline from Kamaru Usman there, but there's a lot of different things that are factored into that. So I don't know if you guys heard it, but it was going around, in the fight circles that Kamaru Usman was heading into that fight with a pretty significant injury. I heard his knees were, it's public knowledge that his knees are not maybe what they used to be when he was in his prime, 32, 33. But I heard that it was actually even worse in this camp. And I heard that he had a cast on his hand for some of the camp. So he had a big hand injury. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but I think that probably played a part if there is. And then you also have to think that the last fight was in altitude, right? And that's where Kamaru Usman trains. This fight wasn't an altitude. It was sea level. It was in London. It's where Edwards is from, his home country of the UK. Also, it's been like 6-7 months from the last fight. He's coming off a big KO loss. I think all of these things mixed into the pot made it so that Edwards could win that fight. I do think that Edwards is in his prime. Now he's 31 years old. Kamaru Usman's going to be 36 in May. So 36 and 31, there's a big difference. I always say that for a male MMA fighter, their prime is 28 to 32. That's what I've seen over the years, right? And just athletic performance in general. 28 to 32 is where you have a good mix of, your intangibles like your muscle mass, your strength, your testosterone. But then you also have the veteran side of things. You've been in the sport for a while. You're not young in the game, 21. You don't make the mistake. So 28 to 32 is the perfect age. That's where Leon is sitting right now. And Kamaru Usman, as I said, 36-year-old at welterweight. You're getting a little bit, he's 36 in May, I should say. You're getting a little bit older. So I think everything mixed into the pot. I do think Kamaru Usman's declined, but I think undoubtedly Edwards is in his prime now. He's getting better. And somebody said, I think it may have been someone who was interviewing Dana White or something, but they brought up a quote or a tweet that Teddy Atlas put out, the famous boxing coach who speaks about MMA a lot. He said that when a champion wins a title, they become 30% better overnight. And we see that quite often, right? Where a champion will win a title and they just look better. They've come into their own. They have that confidence now. And I think that's what happened to Edwards. So I don't want to take anything from Edwards. I do think there was decline on the Usman side, but I think Edwards has got a lot better since the last fight and over the last few years for sure.
Make sure you guys go in the descriptions and download the AllStar app to make picks on every UFC fight, win prizes, play against us. We have a show on Thursday nights. Come join us on that show. And I agree with you on a lot of those points, man. And I think Usman maybe rushed back into this too fast. It's almost like sometimes you shouldn't want the immediate rematch, but he probably felt like the UFC doesn't really like me that much. So I might have to just take this, because if I don't, I might have to fight somebody else. And if I lose, then I probably will never get another shot at the title. So, you rush into it. There's a lot of intangibles, but Usman, clearly he is not the same. He's not, man. And I'm just shocked by that, to be honest with you. I'm just shocked that the wrestling didn't work, but the injuries to the knees, and whatever else he was coming into this fight with, like maybe that hand injury or the whatever, he just couldn't grab the what is it? The gable grips, that you need for the wrestling against the cage to take the guy down. It just wasn't as good. But there was other talking points as well, that there was a lot of fouls in this fight. So let's go over some of these. 3 glove grabs by Leon Edwards, 1 glove grab by Kamaru Usman, 5 low blows from Edwards, 2 of which the referee called, 2 eye pokes from Leon Edwards not called, and 2 fence grabs from Leon Edwards. And which one was one of them was a point deduction, and one of them was like clearly a blatant, fence grab that he should have been taken down. J-Spec, what do you think about all these fouls and the impact it has on the fight?
I mean, it's horrendous. It's massive. It is outrageous. I don't know. I'm running out of words. It is a car crash, basically. It's shit because it drastically changed the flow and outcome of the fight. I mean, we're 3 men in this room, and I know the men around the world. Dude, you get hit downstairs once, it's affecting your performance, let alone what you said 5 times. I know there was ones that didn't get called. The fence grab was almost a big fu to the rules and modern day MMA. I haven't seen fence usage like that since single digits UFC. Um, the glove grabbing, that's kind of a something that spilled over from the second one, right? Like there was a lot of glove grabbing that happened in the second fight. So ugly, unfortunate. I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't like it at all, actually. I know fans don't appreciate During the fight, people were already saying like, "Oh, this is going to be the narrative. Edwards cheated to keep the belt." On the other side, though, I want to point out some stuff. People were going to hop on Kamaru, maybe declining. Probably is. He's at that age where it's normal for it to start to happen. Getting knocked out by somebody, especially at the highest level when you're not losing very much, is a big blow to your psyche. It changes the way you think while you're trying to get in there and do the thing. And he got knocked out cold and immediately had to face the same guy who did it. There's a lot of, I use the word gun shy. He has to get over that situation. I also want to credit Mr. Edwards. He was using, in jiu-jitsu, you always think of the baseball grip to keep somebody that's on your back off from choking you. He was using 2-on-1 right up front, stopping any kind of body lock, stopping any kind of double leg against, just straight neutralizing that attack. So as much as I want to go and say maybe Kamaru -1 or -0.5 on his attribute rating, I want to give Edwards a +2 on takedown defense and awareness. So those fouls, man, ugly, but what are we going to do about it?
Look, James, Edwards, even though he did get taken down, the dude got back up every single time. Like he didn't get stuck there. And going back to the fouls, the fence grabs, like to me, there's no accidental fence grabs. There's no such thing. Like you've grabbed the fence, you grab the fence, you get a point taken away. And I was talking to another guy in a previous show about this and what should they do? Should they start the fight back, in the center of the cage? And he said they should start the fight with the guy that grabbed the fence with his back against the fence, sitting down, and the guy that took him down, on top of him, and start from there. What do you think of that?
It's tough, isn't it? Because if the ref takes a point, then there's an argument that that fence grab has already been dealt with. We don't need to go back to the cage or anything. But when I'm thinking it in my head right now, even if you do take a point, right? If you don't put them back in the same position or in some form of clinch or ground control or in the takedown position where you would have landed in, let's say, half guard, then now you've broken away from each other and more damage can be dealt. Right? We saw it the other day with Rafael Asuncao versus Davy Grant, where a point was taken, but then they didn't put them back in the same position. And so now Davy Grant's in the third round, 2 rounds down already, another point taken. So essentially 3 rounds down. In his mind, he's like, well, I have to get a KO now. I might as well just go balls to the wall. And then he knocked out Rafael Asuncao, or he choked him out, right? He hurt him badly on the feet and he choked him out. Now, if I was Asuncao, I would be thinking, well, if you didn't take the point, you wouldn't have broken us up, and maybe I would have just grinded him out for the rest of the fights, right? And that rest of the fight. And that was Asuncau's last fight as well, retirement fight. So I'll be really pissed off if I was Rafa. So, thinking about that example, and I'm sure there's some other examples like that, I would say that you definitely should put them back maybe in the same position as they was, or if not, act like the takedown basically worked, because I don't think taking a point is enough. I honestly think that they should take a point and put them back in the same position. But I guess it depends on how many times they've grabbed the cage. I think there's a lot of different things going into it, but that would be my view.
And to me, hard warning. I remember like Herb D was saying, "I could give you a hard warning," and then you took a point away. Like it's like that didn't make any fucking sense, right? But hard warning should not even exist. Maybe for like a groin strike, because those could be incidental, because there's so many moving parts. But a fence grab is a fence grab. There should be no warning. You should take a point and put them in the position, because the reason why they grabbed the fence is because they were getting taken down. It's not like they weren't getting taken down. They were getting there. They were feeling danger of getting put on their back. So you take the point, you put them on, not on their back, you sit them against the cage. This is what I feel, and put the guy on top, and then start him from there and see what happens. It could be a huge factor, like you said. The Davy Grant fight was just a prime example of that. I mean, if Rafa just like if they put Rafa back into that spot, he would have grinded out that fight. He would have won a decision. His retirement would have been lovely, right? But instead, he gets choked out in front of his family, right? It's
tough, man.
It's crazy, man. It is tough, man. It's a crazy sport. The people that betted Davy Grant, they were celebrating their ass off it. And I know a lot of people did, right? Because Davy Grant's a killer, man. That dude, I love to watch him fight. But yes, it wasn't a right decision. Now, what do you do? What do you do with these guys, right? What do you do with Leon? What do you do with what's his name? Usman, right? Dana White, he's the guy that always says, "Oh, I don't make fights after the fights," but then he's all of a sudden talking about, "Oh yeah, Colby's gonna be next." I think he's just saying that, and maybe they made a deal because Colby came in and weighed in to be the backup fighter. They might have made a deal behind closed doors saying like, "Yo, you come in as a backup fighter just in case, and if the fight happens, you will get the next shot at the title." And Colby's like, "All right, cool. I'll come in and weigh in." I'm surprised that they didn't even offer that to anybody else, in the division, because Colby's like in a weird spot, right? He hasn't really beaten a contender for a few years, and he's been away from the sport. He got beat up in the street. There's a lot of factors there. Lucrative, what do you think about Colby getting the next title shot?
I'll have to see the rankings. I mean, I understand why they did it, right? Like, it's funny because people are like, "Oh, he doesn't deserve the shot." But I guess they're looking at it from strictly a sport standpoint, right? Which, yeah, okay, we can look at it from that standpoint. But you also have to put yourself in the shoes of the UFC, Dana White. At the end of the day, at the very end of the day, their main objective is to increase the bottom line, right? You can say it's all about the love of the sport and Dana White. Yeah, of course, I know he loves the sport, but the main objective, he's got contracts, he's got shareholders, you know what I mean? He's got things that he has to do every year, and that is make a certain amount of money, put on a certain amount of shows every year. So he wants to make the most money. And say what you want about him, Colby is going to bring a lot of attention to that Leon Edwards fight, right? He's going to boost the pay-per-views by whatever the arbitrary number is, 100,000, 200,000, I don't know, right? If you put someone in there like Shavkat Rakhmonov, I'm just saying him because he had a great win over Jeff Neal not too long ago. I mean, the guy doesn't even speak English. He's not going to get the same amount of attention to that Edwards fight as Colby would, meaning it's not going to generate the same amount of money. It's just not, right? So on the one side, I completely understand it. Strictly from a sport basis, I also understand it. I mean, he had two very close fights against Kamaru Usman. And it's funny because it was the same referee who stopped that first fight against Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington, which was quite a soft stoppage. And that was the same referee. I think it might have been Tognoni. I can't remember. It was the same referee who didn't stop the Ashmoz and Patterson fight when Ashmoz was just in mount and just ground and pounded him for like 10 minutes. It was just quite crazy to see the difference. And it goes back to how we're speaking about the refereeing, and how different it is each time they fight, right? But I do understand giving Colby the shot just because he has had two close fights with Usman. A lot of people saying him and Usman are very comparative. So now Leon's dethroned Usman. Is he going to fight? He could fight Colby, who's quite comparative to Usman. But I mean, who else is there in line right now at welterweight? We've got Rakhmonov, but who else?
But well, when you look at it from, like you said, a business standpoint, right? You could look at the rankings, but rankings, fuck them. They don't matter, right? It doesn't. They put the people that they want in the rankings and boost them up if they want to and move them around. It's puzzle pieces to them, right? It's whatever they want to do. You got Bilal, who's likely going to fight Shavkat, right? And a lot of people are pushing for Bilal to get the next title shot. And then you got the Masvidal Burns fight coming up in a couple of weeks in Miami, right? To me, I think that the most popular, the one that could sell tickets, is of course Masvidal, right? At the end of the day, he's more popular than Colby. He's shown that he's able to sell tickets, right? And he's done things for the UFC in the past. I think they're just putting Colby in there in that spot because nothing's guaranteed until that Masvidal Burns fight happens. If Masvidal somehow pulls off that win, I say that they're going to push Masvidal. And you even saw Leon say it in the post fight. He's like, how does Colby make sense? Because you know he wants the Masvidal fight or he wants the Conor fight if Conor beats Chandler. There's a lot of moving parts right now that they can't make a clear decision. But just to put somebody in that place, Dana says Colby because that's Colby did a something for them by weighing in and being the backup. That's what I see. J-Spec, what do you see?
I see some good old WWE nonsense, right? That's what I see. Colby is gonna get the job because, just like you guys said, he moves the needle. He creates reactions. We were moments after that fight. He dropped a tweet. We're still in the watch party, and people are reacting to his tweets as it's happening. I mean, the guy causes reaction. All right, he's a catalyst to reaction to the fans, like it or not. Like you guys said, their job is to sell pay-per-views, and pay-per-views are normally sold in North America, primarily the US. And Leon ain't going to be doing it. I know I have a lot of arguments from fans going, Shavkat, we want to see Shavkat. Let's be honest, folks. Like mentioned, Shavkat can't sell out of McDonald's right now, like in the States. He's not gonna do it. He's a great fighter. I think he could kill it. But when it comes to selling pay-per-views, nobody's buying a Shavkat pay-per-view yet. So with that being said, they also missed the boat. All right, the two-piece and a soda, three-piece and a soda, whatever. That ship has so sailed. I mean, if the UFC was going to capitalize on Masvidal versus Edwards, that fight should have been booked years ago, literally. Obviously, Masvidal has been taking some L's, so it's hard. But yeah, I agree. Like, what I would like to see is it's already booked, right? Burns and Masvidal's already booked. It's already happening. So, like it or not, Colby's getting that fight. Everybody just get used to it. Pay attention to the cameras and what they do during a show. How many fighters sit cage side for every fight? Tons of them. How many of them in the same weight class of the main event do they pan to right before the start of the fight and immediately after the fight was concluded, shooting over to that guy and getting his reaction? That almost never happens unless they're working an angle and setting up a fight. Remember, it's not something you see often. It's something we saw with Lesnar. Obviously, that didn't quite work out. But pay attention to the camera work, people. The production, that's all set up in place before time. There's no accidental stuff getting on your TV screen. So with that being said, Colby is the guy coming, like it or not. And it's more for the not, probably. It's more for the people going, ugh, Colby, I guess I'll watch it just to get his face smashed in. And I think that's what's going to happen, kind of using the negative factor to get people in on this one.
Hardcores don't matter in this sport, to be honest with you, right? Lucrative, like it doesn't matter, right, James? It's just, what do you think? It doesn't matter, right?
No, I mean, if you're talking about, like, you said Shavkat can't sell out a McDonald's. It depends what type of McDonald's. If it was like a small McDonald's, one of them drive-throughs, he probably could sell it out because you would be there, I would be there, all of us three would be there, and then the hardcores who you mentioned. But in terms of, the wider population, that's who the UFC are trying to cater for. So when people are complaining, that's why I kind of laugh a little bit, complaining about Colby getting the shot, complaining about people who maybe deserve the shot not getting the shot. I kind of, I take a step back and go, yeah, but you're a hardcore. The way you think is potentially the correct way to think, but it's not the way the UFC is going to be thinking, like it or lump it. So as a hardcore, sometimes it is tough for us because we want to see things happen that don't happen. But unfortunately, that's the way it is, and we got to live with it. We're in a capitalist society. We can't do anything about it.
Exactly. That's exactly the way people should look at it. And I'm fine with people complaining about who deserves it because, yes, the fighters deserve things, but sometimes you have to play the game, and if you don't know how to play the game, they're gonna leave you behind. So fighters, play the game.